Hi, good morning to our lovely audience. My name is Ayan Mo. I'm the Senior Marketing Executive for Domus Windows and Doors. We just wanted to thank you for attending our webinar on economical security and hurricane protection for new construction and renovation projects in the Caribbean. We are just waiting for about less than 5 minutes more to allow some more persons to come in. So please enjoy some of the intro videos that we have for you, and we will begin shortly. Thank you for your attention.
Keep going right through.
Yeah, that makes sense last thing again.
The thing break right through. God. But it break. It gone straight through like it gone through already. God. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Nigeria fast.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Terry Ort. I'm the CEO at Domus Windows and Doors. I'm a professional engineer. I've had 15 years, of experience in the window and door business, and I'm going to be your host for the webinar. My co-host is Mr. Ravi Gankaprasad from Domus Building Solutions. These are his contact information, and he'll be doing the second part of the presentation. But first of all, let's talk about some housekeeping. There's going to be 2 polls. I'd like you to please reply quickly. Don't dwell on the answers, because we want to keep moving. And you must answer all questions in a poll in order to be able to submit it. Any answers for multiple choice questions are permitted. If you do have any questions you want to ask at the end of the presentation, please enter those in the chat box or the questions double bubble in your control panel. And then if we don't get through everything at the end, then you can always we'll send out answers by emails. But if you want to verbally present your questions, simply click the raise hand button and you'll be allowed to do that. So as I mentioned, there are two sections to the presentation. The first one I'm going to give on security and hurricane protection. And then the second would be resilient roof construction given by Ravi. So the company's goal is to set a new standard for professionalism and performance in the fenestration industry. So here's a brief introduction to the Domus world. So I'd like to start off with some conclusions that I've reached after 15 years of time in this industry. While the requirements for Caribbean property owners can vary from one to the other, there are really very few window and door products capable of meeting all of their needs, which can include security, hurricane resistance, aesthetics, climate resiliency, energy efficiency, and of course, minimal maintenance and lowest life cycle cost. Unfortunately, I found that there's no broadly accepted window and door standards in the Caribbean. Basically, anything goes. Most products sold are not tested for performance. In fact, there are no performance standards, but there can be standards that will define what window and door performance to meet the real needs of Caribbean citizens. And there's also ways to test it and to prove that they actually meet those standards. So the purposes of this webinar are, first of all, to identify the risks faced by all Caribbean property owners that include security and/or hurricane damage and, of course, threats to human life. Also to provide performance standards and to justify why they are appropriate for the Caribbean. To show how to test the products to these standards, and then to illustrate why product performance matters in real life. I also want to present some other important features that enable security and hurricane protection. Now, burglary and home invasion are a risk for every Caribbean citizen, but in particular in countries of Trinidad, Guyana, Jamaica, but others as well. And when this happens, victims are often beaten while being robbed, and some perpetrators even kill their victims. So this is no laughing matter. In Jamaica, there's more than 1,300 murders every year. Trinidad, it's about 500. And even in Little St. Kitts, with a small population, they still have, on a per capita basis, in 2018, they were the third highest in the world. In terms of burglaries, there's 5.8 on average every day in Trinidad, and over 200 armed home invasions that are reported, probably more than that in Trinidad. So these home invasions succeed when the exterior shell of the building is penetrated by the intruder. And windows and doors are the most vulnerable element in the building shell. So very often intruders gain entrance by smashing through a window. Now, as you can see, regular glass doesn't do very much to stop any burglar for very long. Then some people will laud the advantages of tempered glass, which actually is 4 times as strong as regular glass until it's hit. And it's struck by anything, then it totally disappears. So it's actually the preferred glazing for robbers. So the other way people can get in is by kicking in an entrance door. Now this is an attempted home invasion within the last week in West Moorings here in Port of Spain, Trinidad. And as you can see, they didn't get too far, but that's a security camera that's logging it all. And I don't know if you saw the guns that they had in their hands, but I don't think it was going to be pretty. The other way that people get in is by removing shutters or traditional burglar proofing. Now, people seem to gain a fair amount of confidence from burglar proofing, but frankly, in many cases, it's simply a visible deterrent rather than an actual one. Because in many cases, if they're put on the outside, you can simply remove them with a car jack. Or in some cases, I've seen hook onto a car or a truck if you can get near them with a rope and pull them right out of the building. Of course, they also rust, require constant painting. They're very unsightly. And in a fire, they don't open and there's no escape in many cases. So not ideal either. So as you can see, window, door, and security, shutters, pardon me, have security failures when either the glazing or the shutter material fails due to blows from an intruder, or the laminate glass is struck and then cracked and kicked out. If you have rubber gasketed windows, they provide absolutely no security whatsoever, because even if it has laminate glass, once that laminate glass is cracked, it has no strength and it can easily be kicked in. Or the entire window, door, or shutter fails, either due to structural failure or insufficient fasteners around the perimeter, or the fasteners are too short and they pull out, or they're steel and they actually rust, corrode, and disappear within a couple of years. So these are the issues with security. And as I said, it's common really throughout the Caribbean in every country. Now, to deal with hurricanes, first of all, it's very clear from scientific knowledge and stats, and I could spend 2 hours proving this to you, but won't bother. But climate change has occurred and is continuing to occur at an accelerating rate. And this climate change now increases the percentage of tropical storms that turn into intense, highly destructive hurricanes. Now, these highly destructive ones are what would cause all of the damage. Typically 175 miles an hour and up, it wipes everything off the face of the earth pretty much. The problem too is that hurricanes are intensifying earlier. So this places the Eastern Caribbean islands at a greater risk. If you look at Irma, Maria, and Dorian, they all were Cat 5 before they ever got to the islands. And they're also maintaining their strength longer and going to continue to increase as we go along. To illustrate this, in the first 75 years of the last century, there were only 4 super hurricanes. In the next 40 years, just over half the time, there were more than twice as many. And in the last 4 years, we had 3 super hurricanes with Maria, Irma, and Dorian. Dorian being one of the 2 most intense hurricanes ever recorded, 190 miles an hour in the Bahamas, of course. This has been an extremely active year, and we can expect more of these as we go forward. They went right through the entire alphabet, A to Z, and now they're into the Greek letters. And you can see this is very, very active hurricanes and storms all over the place. And as we speak, Hurricane Zeta is bearing down on Mississippi again, about the 3rd time this season. So broadly speaking, there is 3 kinds of building envelope hurricane damage. The windows and doors can fail, the roof can fail, or you can have the entire structure. So what causes this to start? So what most people don't know is that the leading cause of roof failure is in fact the window and doors failing first. And typically then pressure builds up inside the structure through the openings in the envelope, and then the internal pressure lifts off the roof. Or it could be that the weakened structure fails completely. So as the video pointed out, there are two reasons primarily for it happening, and the third if you've got a gasketed window. But first of all, either debris breaks the glass in one or more windows and doors, or if you've got rubber gasketed windows again, they simply pop out of the frames, even if they're not struck. But the other one is wind force. In the last part of the video, you saw that the entire window was missing. And once that's gone, then again, you're going to have the hurricane get inside and lift the roof off. And just as there are, for security, you can have structural failure, insufficient fasteners, they're too short, or they can be totally gone. Now, to give you some idea of the amount of force involved, you can see the different categories of hurricanes, and a Cat 1 is kind of almost a joke at 15 pounds per square foot. When you get up to a Cat 4, you've got 50 pounds per square foot, which is more than 3 times. And then get up to a Cat 5 or a very heavy Cat 5 at 175 miles an hour, that's 75 pounds per square foot. Now, Dorian was approaching 100 pounds per square foot at 200 miles an hour. You can see there's an exponential rise in pressure relative to wind speed. Now, to put that in perspective, the floor that you're sitting on is supposed to be rated at 50 pounds per square foot. So in order to resist the strongest Cat 5 hurricane, you're going to need windows and doors that are capable of being twice as strong as the floor you're sitting on. Now, to put it into quantify the actual load, if you've got a window, a double window, looks like about 3,000 pounds, 1.5 tons. But on a patio door, you're talking about 4 tons of weight. That's a 10-ton truck. And think of how many of you could stand to see a 10-ton truck drive onto your patio door. But that's what you're going to need in order to provide you with adequate protection. Well, interestingly, the roof force, once the hurricane gets inside, if you look at the 180 miles an hour with a 1,000 square foot roof at 75% of the wind load pressure, and it can get up to 100%, you're talking about 30 tons of lift. So if that roof is going to hang in there at that point, it had better be very, very well secured, sufficiently secured that the biggest crane in the island could not rip it off. And that very often doesn't happen. So best thing to do is to keep the wind on the outside and not have the windows and doors fail, or you're going to see the damage that occurred in Irma. And this last one is Ivan a few years ago. So we've now seen the security risk and also hurricane risk. So what is going to prevent that? Well, there's 3 basics of security and hurricane resistant windows and doors. First of all, the frames, the mullions, sashes, and the other elements must be strong enough to withstand the wind forces, i.e. the 100 pounds per square foot. Secondly, the glazing needs to be capable of surviving either multiple intruder blows or windborne missiles from a hurricane, which requires very, very strong laminate glass. The last thing, which is very important as well, is the glazing needs to be secured to the frames to keep it from popping out. So, and these, the forces to pull it out are immense. So it's a very important factor to get the right glue, if you will, or adhesive. Now, the other thing too is the installation is critical. You can have a perfectly fine window, but if it is not put in, not installed properly, then that can be a problem. First of all, the fasteners need to retain their strength, for the life of the ownership, which we use 20 to 100 years. So we use high-grade stainless steel that are coated to be impervious to salt air. Fasteners need to be all around the perimeter at intervals sufficiently to transfer the loads evenly to the building structure. And fasteners must be sufficiently strong so they don't pull out under wind load. And of course, you need to use high quality 100% silicone caulking that's going to retain its strength and sealing characteristics for 50 to 100 years. So, as I said, there's been no agreement on suitable performance specs for the Eastern Caribbean. Some say Cat 3, some, but they're not enforced anyway. But as we all know, specifications are used in order to establish performance standards. And there's always going to be a trade-off between setting these standards too low so that it puts people in buildings at risk, or setting it too high such that it's almost impossible to afford any kind of solution. So after 15 years of experience in this business, Domus has now established some standards which I would like to see required throughout the Caribbean. We have two of them depending on, first of all, impact, i.e. the missiles flying around, or in a security situation, people banging on the, hammering on the window or door. So the test that we're suggesting to define this standard would be 3 blows under ASTM, that's the American Society for the Testing of Materials. And there's a standardized test of a 4-foot-long 2x4 fired out of a cannon at 40 feet per second. Now this extra cost is really not very high at all, and there's no reason why anybody who owns a house or any kind of building in the Caribbean cannot afford it. Now this hasn't been available. This is a new standard, and typically about half the cost of the Miami-Dade stuff. But what we found from Hurricane Irma is that this particular standard is sufficient to meet even the strongest of hurricanes. So it provides sufficient impact to stop thieves and the vast majority of even the most intense hurricanes. So I'm going to show you the economical hurricane impact test, and then followed by a demonstration of its intrusion resistance. So as you can see, pretty good thump. The glass is certainly wrecked and would have to be replaced, but the window is still intact and the hurricane's on the outside. Same is true for intrusion. And again, you have to replace the glass, but at least the intruder's on the outside, not sticking a gun in your ear. Now, we also have a high impact security and hurricane spec, which a lot of people are chinning themselves up to pay for, which is quite a bit more expensive. In this case, again, it uses a standardized test of missile D, which is 8 feet long, twice as long as the other, and fired from a cannon at 50 feet per second rather than 40. So it's a lot more kinetic energy that has to be absorbed by the pane of glass. It's considerably more expensive, but for those who can afford it and they want the additional peace of mind, well worth it. So I'd like to show you the impact hurricane test, followed by a demonstration of intrusion resistance. Yuri is a thief who's highly motivated to come in. I'm not sure if he's very strong, but we'll see. So I think you need a bigger hammer. Try again. You're not getting in very well. Okay, well I think that's enough. You kind of get the idea. Now, as you can see, that is that is pretty much anything that a thief could dish out. And I dare say that most burglar proofing would not stand up to that kind of abuse. And these are multiple strikes and there's no penetration. And so we find a lot of our competitors are using the word impact. We have ours we call high impact. Well, here's an impact glass from some of the competitors.
Wow.
It gone right through.
Yeah, don't make sense lashing that game.
The thing break right through. God. But it break. It gone straight through like it gone through already. Good. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I tell you fast.
Yeah, so not all laminate glass is the same, and that's why it's important that there are tests for it. Now, the next thing, remember that we talked about impact and the other thing being wind load, or in the case of a 300-pound thief running into your door and trying to smash his way through, you want to make sure that the door or window has structural strength as well. And so what we've done now from zeroed in on, which we know is sufficient to stop invasions as well as 200-mile-an-hour hurricanes, which is 10 miles higher than the strongest wind speed ever recorded in the past 120 years. And really the highest standard in the industry is to go to the 100 pounds per square foot. Remember that that's twice the loading of the floor you're on. And it's not easy to make your products stand up to that, but they can be tested. And we now know that our products will stand up to that because we have the only test lab in the Eastern Caribbean. And what you do is you put your test unit against the wall, and then you use suction to remove some of the air on the one side. I don't know if you remember your high school physics at all, but atmospheric pressure is 15 pounds per square inch, or 2,100 pounds per square foot. So you think, oh my gosh, I have all of that pressure on my body. Well, yes, you do, but typically it's equalized in your lungs and so on. But we only need 100 pounds, so all we need is a partial vacuum, and we can then simulate hurricanes, hurricane strength, and also test for structural strength. So here's the manifold that can suck the air out. Now this particular unit, this is our least expensive unit that we designed, performance unit with security laminate glass. This particular one broke at 263 miles an hour, which is almost twice as much as the 100 pounds per square foot. So again, if you do the proper testing, then you can certainly tell whether they're going to be able to repel thieves or not. Now there's other security considerations as well. You need locks that can't be easily picked or thwarted. Also, sometimes they tap out the hinge pins and pull off the door. And of course, the locking mechanism itself must be robust enough to stop would-be thieves. So this is a grade 10 locking mechanism, the highest rated in the industry. And you'll see it's got multiple locking points, a deadbolt, and so on. And the hinge pins are hidden when the door is closed. You can't get at them. So you would have to actually open the door before you can remove them. The other thing that provides strength is there's a door stop all the way around, so that when someone hits on the door, the energy is dispersed around the door. And the PVC and the glass actually stretch a bit to absorb the kinetic energy. Patio doors are one of the weakest links in the whole fenestration industry. Typically, they have had either ordinary float glass or maybe tempered glass that with one blow can be easily broken. The locks are often weak and can be easily pried open. Many sashes can be lifted out of the frame if you've got that very shallow frame on your patio door. Then it can be simply lifted off. And of course, when you when you're washing your deck on the outside, you'll also be washing your living room. So any one of these vulnerabilities can cause home invasion. So the glass is certainly important. That's glued into the frame. And then also high-class locks with double teeth on them, heavy stainless steel, and then also high-strength keepers. So when it locks securely both top and bottom. And also because there's tracks top and bottom, you cannot get the sash out without actually opening it and then using a screwdriver to lower the bottom rollers. So that's not a problem. If you actually want a very inexpensive security feature, you can simply put a block of wood in there, and that stops anyone from coming through. Now, I mentioned burglar proofing. It should be installed, in our view, inside the windows and doors and behind laminate glass. So you have two levels of security protection. First of all, if it's on the inside, then they can't remove it with a car jack or prying it out with a crowbar. The bars remain clean, needs no maintenance. And again, if you use long screws around the perimeter, it's much stronger than mortared crabs in terms of resistance. So this is our factory painted aluminum, which again has been put in the last 15 police stations in the country, and always on the inside. Can look very attractive, like Frenching, rather than looking like a prison. So I'd like to now do a poll and get some feedback from you. So let me just put this up. So this is just a little test of some of the information I gave you before on terms of floor strength and then the structural strength. The next is the terms of laminate glass. And also, do you think there should be any standards in the Caribbean, or do we just buyer beware? And lastly, if it is appropriate to have some standards, should manufacturers actually be required to tell you what you're getting? Because at the moment, there's no clue. So I don't know if everybody's finished, maybe another 10 or 15 seconds. Okay, so I'm going to stop now. Oh, the last person just seems to have voted. I'll give it a few more seconds. There's answers are still coming in. Okay, 5 seconds, and I'm going to end it now. So, just to share the results, in fact, the floor loading is 50 pounds per square foot. And in fact, whoops. jumping around here. And yeah, so Domus, as you got, was twice as strong as the floor in order to meet the highest hurricane standards. And I guess a few people thought that all laminate glass was the same, but the number realized that it's not the same. Seems like standards would be useful for consumers, and that in fact these standards should be, or the specifications or the performance of each window and door should be in fact stated. So what I'd like to now do is turn the podium over to Ravi, and so then we'll come back at the end and deal with questions. Ravi, oh, there he is.
Thank you, Larry. Right. Good morning, everyone. Very informative session there. Just give me a minute. Right. So it's Domus Building Solutions is proud to be part of this webinar, assisting Terry and Domus in terms of explaining the importance of having proper windows and roofing construction in your building. Now, again, my name is Ravi Gangabasa. I'm the divisional manager for Domus Building Solutions. And if you need to contact me, my email is there. You could message me after the session and could carry the conversation further. So Domus Building Solutions. Sorry. Domus Building Solutions is a division of General Packaging Limited. We were founded in 2011. Basically, we are a marketing and sales division responsible for all Domus Roofing Systems products, where we provide quality roofing products for over 23 years. We currently hold TTBS certifications, store and registered with the TTMA. With factory operations in Trinidad and USA, we are full service roofing company providing industrial, residential, private development, supply and install, commercial, both local and export. And also we supply regionally to the US and to the USA. So the question that everybody asks us in our industry, roofs hurricane proof? With recent Cat 5 hurricanes, it's a question we regularly get. And the simplest answer is no. The reason being, a roof is not just the sheet, which is what people ask. It's really about the system, the roofing system. But your roof can be designed to be resilient against storms or hurricanes. As Terry spoke about, no code existing for the windows regionally. You can stay the same for us, where there's no specific code around the Caribbean with relation to hurricane resilient. Now, there are suggestions, there are papers, there are recommendations. But even in Trinidad and Tobago, we don't necessarily have a hurricane resilient or hurricane code, building code for the roofing industry. So what we do is depend on best practices or standards applied to different localities or regions or even climates. As a side note, the main code used in Trinidad when designing small buildings is the TTPS TS 599-2006. So does your roof or you mainly rely on the expertise of the designer, the draftsman or architect, and the roofing company when designing your roof. So hurricane storm resilience. As I mentioned before, the roof is not just the sheets, it's a whole system. So the resilience of a roof depends on many factors, with the two most relevant being windows, doors, as Terry outlined, and the method of installation. This is very important, and this is where the whole system comes into place. The installation process or method includes the purlin spacing, your slope or your degree, your pitch, the fasteners used, and also your soffit lengths. So just to note there too, your roof design in relation to your wind direction, also the layout of the building is very important. So the material, just to address that one up front. Your material is very important. You must have high quality, high grade material being used to manufacture the roofing profiles. In Trinidad and Tobago, and I think it's first of its kind in Caribbean, there is a certification for the material itself, which is the TTBS 69 2019. And this basically issues a certification for verifying the base metal thickness, the tensile strength of the steel, the base steel used to make the sheets, which in this case is a minimum of 320 megapascals, according to the, as compared to the ASTM 8370 standard. You have also verification of the coating mass of the sheets. In our case, we use primarily alu zinc, and that's mainly says a guaranteed 55% alu zinc and 45% zinc composition. And then your length and consistency of the profile. So wind and roof. Wind acts both on the main structure and on the individual claddings of a building. As Terry outlined, the wind, wind and debris are very the main cause really for failure of any window system or roofing system. So the structure, the building in entirety has to be braced to resist the horizontal load and anchored to the ground to prevent the entire building from lifting off. And you've seen that. You've seen that where even category 2 or 3 hurricanes have passed through. Not just the roof, but the entire home is lodged from its foundation. So if the building is not heavy enough to keep its own self grounded, then you need to place braces or the necessary means of stabilizing the building. So it is also important to tie, as we say in Trinidad, we tie the roof to the building. So that means securing it securely to the ring beam or the rafters being used. So what is the best practice in light of no standard code there? At Domus Roofing, Domus Berlin, we recommend, and you'll see this documented in various resilient roof designs around the Caribbean, recommended pitch of at least 25 or 30 degree. Your eaves are soffits. All right, my parents' home, their soffit is at least 36 inches, enough to form a wing, basically. But here they're recommending, and we recommend an eve limit of 20 inches. Why is that? Because of the airlift that I will explain later on. And then your slopes. We recommend if you have the option to do a gable, for a hip roof, which is basically 4 sides versus a gable, with the same reasoning that it provides more resistance or less failure to hurricane strength winds. The construction, we recommend metal versus wood, and I'll show some images why that is so. And then metal, because metal provides more resilience. Anchoring of the roof, as I said before, in terms of the foundation to a ring beam. If you recall locally in Trinidad last week or the week before, there was a tornado that touched down. And when you look at the images, the entire roof was lifted off from the building, and the sheets itself was still intact on the frame of of the roof. But the frame itself, when you investigate further, was poorly secured to the building, and there was no evidence of a ring beam. A ring beam is basically a reinforced concrete metal structure around the top part of your building where the blocks ends. You build a ring beam there, so it adds additional strength. So it's not so much the profile or the material alone, but a number of connected factors are necessary for building a resilient roof. You can get more of what I spoke of in more details at mydamus.com/resources, and you'll have best practice there in terms of installation of the sheets and the frame. So let's give you an example. Our tropical tile profile roof installation method is actually Florida Building Code approved. It has a wind uplift resistance range of PS or 52.5 pounds per square foot to 157.5 pounds per square foot. If you a crude conversion here is basically it can resist wind uplift up to 248 miles per hour, which is above your category 5 hurricane rating. So where does this strength comes from, or where does this resistance come from, or resilience? It's basically in how you fasten the roof. And what it says in the standard in the code is that for every screw where it's placed, you get varying levels of resistance or resilience. So with one screw, every other sheet crown, you get a 52.5 PSF. And then if you do the two screws every sheet crown, you get 157.5 PSF. And that's just an illustration as to what we're speaking about in terms of screw placement. So the black dots there represent the fastening, where the fasteners are placed. Below that will be your purlin, which is running horizontally, right? And obviously what this code says is that you have to have a degree pitch of at least 14 and a purlin space of 24. In Trinidad, we recommend the 25 to 30. So, a little imagery here. This is Phillipsburg, San Martin. I took this picture a couple of weeks after they were devastated by the hurricane. And you see those pretty blue roofs? They are actually not roofs. They are tarpaulin, blue tarpaulin. All those with blue tarpaulin, and the entire roof was blown off. To illustrate why I said earlier on about metal versus wood framing. Both in San Martin and down there, again, Dominica, this building was there just obliquely opposite the parliament there around there, where you have the frame is intact, but it's wood rafters that they use, and the slope is actually not bad. But look at what happened. The sheets were dislodged from the actual frame. So that's why we always recommend going with a metal frame. And when you're looking at hurricane resilience. So this building on the left-hand side, the story behind it is it's the house for the consulate, Trinidad and Tobago consulate in Dominica. When the hurricane descended, I think it was Maria, descended on the island. Within minutes, he said that they were up to hurricane strength force winds around his house. And they were doing okay until the door blew open and then the window exploded. And when that happened, his entire roof blew off. So that illustrates there that your windows and doors is probably a first point of failure when it comes to a hurricane, the hurricane strength winds. The building on the right is actually his neighbor, and it was untouched. Metal frame, good pitch. Just the eave was a little bit long on the other side, but it basically kept to the dimensions or the recommendations that we did, and it was untouched. So survival of your roof is really a sensible choice. This is again Dominica Rosso, where all the roofs you see surviving there actually conform to the guidelines that I just spoke of. So when I spoke about tropical tile being coded, this is another example in San Martin, where the tropical tile, we supplied this many years ago. The tropical tile was built at the pitch that I recommend. There was no eave, you realize, literally no eave there. And its slope was between 25 degree slope, and the fasteners placed as recommended. And this roof was largely untouched in a Cat 5 hurricane. So in closing, from a roofing perspective, building a roof that is resilient, storms or even hurricanes, begin with a good foundation, framing, building structure, and of course, quality windows, doors, and roofing materials. Design, material, service provider chosen are important to a resilient roof as the material itself. Keeping on the side of quality will ensure a long-term relationship with your roof. So with that, I hand you over back to Terry, and then we'll go to Q&A.
Thanks, Ravi.
Welcome.
So I'm going to do one more poll and then we'll open the floor to Q&A. So here it is. And so the questions we're asking this time, does the home you have currently have any form of window, door, security, or hurricane protection? And if yes, are you confident that it's going to work? The third one is, what features make a roof more resilient to windstorms? And lastly, Ravi and I would like to know if you learned any new information from the webinar, and then to give us a rating, if you would. 1 to 5, 5 being the highest. Okay, maybe another 10 or 15 seconds. Okay, so I think I'm going to end the polling and then share the results with you. So thank you very much for your participation. So firstly, it looks like the majority of people do not have any form of window, doors, security and or hurricane protection. And but a couple of people were confident that it's fine. More people did not think, and I guess the rest are not applicable. So yeah, but basically all of the items mentioned there will help make the roof more resilient in a hurricane. Well, this is nice to see that everybody learned something from it, so we can waste your time. And we got some decent ratings. So if you have any suggestions about how to improve it, please email either Ravi or myself. And so I'd like to now turn the floor over to Q&A. So I don't know. Ayana, are you there?
He is there.
Maybe she lost her internet connection. So let me see if we can.
Hi, Mr. Ott. Ayana, I'm not seeing her on right now. This is Ilanka from the TTMA.
Okay.
Yes. So do you want me to guide you how to navigate the Q&A?
Yeah, so I see now that there's somebody asking, can your glass withstand gunfire in the event of a home invasion? And the answer is no. Security, the laminate glass does not do it. We do have a bulletproof version of the glazing, and that will stop. There's two different levels. One will stop a 9mm and the other pretty much stop everything. But the laminate glass that we have will keep them on the outside, but not stand up to gunfire. What do you think about the standards of windows and doors in Tobago, which were reputed to have been given their experience with Hurricane Flora? I'm not really sure what the standards are there. We deal with throughout the Caribbean, and as I said, there's a range of them. But basically, the standard one is Miami-Dade, which uses the very high, very thick laminate glass, which makes it very expensive. And the reason they go to that very heavy glass, which is great for security, but maybe not always necessary for hurricanes, is that all of the, or most of the roofs that failed in Hurricane Andrew in 1992 had either clay tile or concrete tile. These things weighed up to 50 pounds each. They were basically sitting on the roof with a nail at the top of them to keep them on, but relying on gravity. They were raining all over the place and smashed into the windows, knocked them out, and then that started the cycle of failure. So we don't have many of those tiles. And what we found in Hurricane Irma in St. Martin was that we get very few of those kinds of missile strikes. And we found that the economical hurricane and the high impact hurricane operated pretty much the same, or performed pretty much the same. So, but I don't think Hurricane Flora would match up with.
What metal and cereals?
Pardon? Ravi?
No, sorry, no. Ignore that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so I don't think that would stand up to a Cat, the top of the Cat 5. Will the recording be available? I believe so, a TTMA?
Yes, the recording will be available. I will send it to the attendees by next week, Tuesday.
Okay, great. No, we don't do hurricane shutters. In fact, hurricane shutters are a bigger liability, that I found anyway from Hurricane Irma. We had one building which had hurricane shutters on half of the building. The homeowner, or the owner of the building, it was a commercial building, was going to protect the glass. So they put hurricane shutters on, and then the remainder of the building was unprotected. We came back after the hurricane, and the part that was not protected, the glass, most of it had been hit by missiles. It was cracked, but there was no failure. The ones with the hurricane shutters, every single window failed, because the hurricane shutters generally are not rated at anything over 140 miles an hour. Also, if they're installed close enough to the glass, then the constant battering acts like a battering ram and knocks out the glass. Then the hurricane shutters failed and the whole building failed. So in fact, if you drove around, maybe Ravi would remember this from Irma in St. Martin, but there were hurricane shutters all over the island, and it looked like about 90% of them that had any kind of wind exposure failed. So I'm telling people you're better off to get the right windows and doors, put them extra money into the high impact glass, make sure it's properly tested, and you'll be a lot better off than with most of the hurricane shutters. Are you all spearheading any mission to get standards implemented in Trinidad and the Caribbean? Well, we've been doing a series of webinars and trying to educate, but at the end of the day, it's up to the individual governments in each of the islands. So we've done presentations to them, and I'm sorry to say, I don't think I've seen very much progress, whether it's Barbados or Dominica or wherever we've been doing these seminars. And I don't know, it doesn't seem to be heading in that direction, and I'm not sure what one company can do other than continue to educate. And the last one, Ravi, do you want to get this? I'm looking for the best framing for a beachfront house on the East Coast.
Yeah. Say that again. I'm not seeing the question.
Yeah, East Coast installation.
You could, if you want the best framing installation, that's the question. Because I'm not seeing it coming up on my chat.
Okay.
Could you just read it for me?
I'm looking for the best framing for beachfront house on the East Coast.
Right.
Michelle.
Right. So That's a vague question with plenty answers. So what I could advise you is contact us. So you could contact me directly, raviji@damusbuilding.com, and I could advise you accordingly. But basically, we will recommend that you go um, with the sun and seam profile on the East Coast, and with framing. Once you do a proper roof installation, your framing will be protected from the elements, be it wood or metal.
Okay, we're almost out of time, but you spoke of correct installation. Yes, Domus does do installation, and I believe
Yeah.
Damus does as well.
Yeah, so Ramesh, you asked if we do full roof rafters, pillars, and sheets. Yes, we do. You can check us on mydamus.com and you'll get more information there and also someone to assist.
What's your average production schedule? Ours is 4 to 6 weeks in general. And the question is, are you seeing any delays on components due to COVID? And the answer is yes, we are having a very difficult time with our supply chain. We're now ordering very early. Delivery, or at least the production, has now gone from 2 weeks in the States and Canada up to 10 to 12 weeks. And there seems to be the biggest building boom going on. I guess if people can't travel, there must be building. But we still are pretty much meeting our deadlines, 4 to 6 weeks. What's your lead time, Abby? I think yours is a lot less, Ravi.
Out of the US is about 2 weeks, but most of our raw materials come from the Far East, so that's 3 to 6 months.
But your production time?
Well, our production time, 3 to 4 days, working days, even
Yeah,
less if
yeah.
needed. Same day or next day, depending on the profile.
Okay.
Kian, you asked what time should you check both Demos and Domus in terms of building a home? You could check us now for free estimates. With Domus, you have, well, Terry, you could explain more how they can estimate, but with us, you could go online or just call us on 8664 DVS and you'll get, you could take it from there.
Yeah, if you go on our site or actually go to Damus, either one,
Yeah.
we actually produce quotes. We try to do that within 2 to 3 business days.
Yeah.
So just to get through a couple more, my husband and I are hoping to begin building a home in our family next year. At what point should we recommend that we contact you?
Yeah,
I would say at this stage, at the earliest possible stage, because both whether it's your roof or your windows and doors, both companies can provide very, very important information to. So TTMA Secretariat would like to answer the question. Go ahead.
Oh no, I wasn't answering any question. I'm just
Oh,
checking it off as you respond to the questions, and I was checking it off so it will go to answered.
okay. Okay. Seeing that Damus has been in the construction industry for 23 years, don't you think that you have some authority in championing standards in TNT? Ravi?
Yes, we have been very active and vocal in championing industry standards, but at any day, it is left up to the necessary building standard um, um, bureau and whatnot to bring those standards. Yes. TTBS. Yeah, TTBS is the authority in Trinidad and Tobago to develop standards, and yes, we are currently in discussion with them for the various aspects of the roofing industry, which includes construction and also sheet material quality.
Okay.
So yeah, we have been using our.
Okay, we had one person stating that in the absence of a national building code, roofs are designed locally by architects and engineers using international building codes. Well, yeah, they should be using IBCs, but in many cases, this just doesn't happen. And so there are some architects and engineers who are doing a great job. And if they're involved, then chances are that they may well be according to building code. But there's an awful lot of stuff out there that is contrary to IBC. So what is the most suitable window for a person's living close to the sea area? Well, this really is a matter for hardware. We use all the highest grade stainless steel hardware, but still, if you've got a casement or an awning window, then you're still going to have some amount of maintenance that's required. Whereas if you use a slider window or a sash window, then they require basically almost no maintenance whatsoever, and there's nothing exposed. So I would say, unless you're looking for shedding of wind, which case you, or pardon me, of rain, which case you may want to use an awning window, then I would recommend a slider or a single hung. Those also tend to be the least expensive and very simple. What are your plans for Caribbean on great quality? I'm not sure I understand that. But I think both companies are making every effort to deliver very high quality. For instance, we're doing a lot of testing on our units, both for impact and also for force. And in terms of the products that we use the highest grade stainless steel of any window manufacturer in the world. In terms of our fasteners, again, we use a proprietary coating that will last 100 years. You can take the screws, put them into salt water, and so on. So I think both of us are focused as much as we can on quality. Do you want to speak to fasteners you mentioned the other day? Save a few bucks on wrong fasteners. Right?
Yeah. A common feedback is like, why is the fasteners? I'm getting it 5 cents cheaper somewhere else. But we don't compromise on the fasteners, as I illustrated earlier on. It is one of the most important components of your roof. So spend the extra 5 cents, TT that is, and get some high quality fasteners for your roof. Don't cheap out. That's not the time to cheap out.
Another one, do you all do designing to aid with the window designs that you have? And I was saying, yes, we in fact, with most of our customers, developers, for instance, they typically bring us in at the design stage, and we will tell them what windows and doors are the least expensive, what sizes they should have, and so on and so forth. So, yes, we do assist in designing, and we can, as I said, we've got the standards that we can provide to you. Another one, do you use burglar proofing in the windows? During the presentation, I did show that we have aluminum burglar proofing. We do use that. Some people do want it as an extra level of security. It also provides a visual deterrent. We found, for instance, in some of the in the past that if people don't have any burglar proofing or anything on the window, a burglar will come up and start smashing on the window. We had one commercial building where they came and hammered every window, cracked it, never got in, but because they thought it was just regular glass, they're more likely to try it on. So, but we think that burglar proofing should be on the inside, and it should be a second round of defense, because if it's on the outside, it provides very, very little security other than people think it's going to do something. Do you recommend the modern look where you have more glass than bricks? Well, we're a window company. I do like a lot of light and so on. So in my case, yes. So I think glass and light enhances the appearance and the aesthetics of a house. So I don't see anything more. I think that if that's the last of the questions. Oh, is glass cheaper than bricks? Depending on what the glazing is, but yes, generally speaking, I would say it probably is. I don't. You have to speak to a QS to get a definitive answer. If you go for high impact with very large patio doors or something, those can be more expensive. So I guess I should really duck that one. Also asking, is there a maximum size? Yes, there are maximum sizes that we can build. For instance, if you've got a slider window, we generally do not want to go more than 48 inches high. If it does go higher than that, then we use basically a patio door profile, which allows us to have bigger windows, but still maintain the same security and impact standards. What's the cost range for a flat or 2-leveled home? Gosh, you know, there are so many different options, window types and glass options. We have 1,000 different configurations, each of which can be custom sized. And we have 150 different glazing options as well, because we have the only glass lamination plant in the Caribbean. We can put any 2 pieces of glass together. So the best thing is, you know, give us a design, we'll quote you, and then you'll know exactly. What's your take on installing glass on a trailer office? Same issues basically as anywhere else. I mean, you need to have a frame around it that is going to be strong enough. So if you're doing that, then make sure that it's got something to be fastened to. And but there's nothing special about a trailer versus a house, other than the structure itself needs to be strong enough to transfer the loads. So, I'll do site visits to residential homes currently building, need windows and doors. Yes, we do. But typically what we like to do is to have the architect give us the nominal sizes. And once the we've quoted the party and they want to proceed, then we'll come to do a site visit to do a final inspection. We can't get to every site all the time. So, but yes, we will come to verify the openings before the orders put in, make sure they're the right tolerance, and also quote on installation. So I think we're out of time and no more questions. So again, thank you very much. And we really appreciate the opportunity to speak with everybody and present ourselves. And if you would like either one of us, Ravi or myself, to present to a group, architecture group, or architects or professionals of any sort, or schools or whatever, we'd be happy to consider doing that. So I think it's a very good idea for people to be educated, and there's a lot, we can do a lot better than we have done in the past in the window door industry. So if nothing else, then I'm going to sign off. Thanks, Ravi, and
Thanks, Terry. Thanks,
and thanks to everybody for attending.
Yeah, take care.
It was very informative, Mr. Watt.
Okay, great.
So I'll send a recording by next Tuesday, and I'll also share it with your attendees.
Okay.
Very well.